Hey everyone, this is Alexis from Answer AI. This video is one of our dev chats. These are internal, external chats that we do about anything that we're working on and we want to share with other people. This is about a tool I made called pythonrunscript. It lets you define single file Python scripts that declare their dependencies internally in comments, so you can just run them without having to manually set up or manage a conda environment or a virtual env environment or a venv environment or whatever. I've wanted to put this little comment right now in front of the video because some of the things in the video are a bit out of date. So one thing is it's called Python run script, not Python script or whatever I refer to it as in the video. Another thing is it's done. It's in a GitHub repo. You can go check it out there, grab the binary, or you can install it by just pip installing Python run script. And some of the syntax that we talked over ended up a little different. It uses markdown fences instead of YAML fences to let you declare your dependencies. You can use requirements.txt or environment YAML or conda install specs and put them in there. And also it has a dry run mode, a verbose mode, and the other amenities you'd expect from a command line tool. It works on Linux and Mac OS. In addition to talking about this tool, we also talk more generally about scripting languages and what makes them good or bad. So I hope you find this interesting, and thanks.
Okay, now it's working.
There we go. Now we're recording. Hello, gentlemen. Okay, so I thought I would talk about something that I've been hacking on the last couple days.
Who are you?
Oh, right. Sorry. I'm Alexis. Um,
Hi,
and
Alexis.
hello,
Hey,
everybody. I'm at Answer
turns
AI.
out we work together.
This is one of our dev chats, which may or may not be published. So might as well introduce ourselves. Um, Jeremy, who are you?
They know me because I've done two of them already.
Okay. Well, Jono, what about you?
Yep, I'm also at Answer AI. I think maybe in some past videos on the channel. If not, also R&D, same job title as everyone. So that should
Cool.
be enough for now.
All right, so I just wanted to talk to you guys about something that I started on Friday afternoon when the brainstorm hit me. And now it's mostly working, although it's not prettied up yet, but I'm actually quite happy with it. So I wanted to get feedback from you both on, I don't know, ways to improve it, if it'd be useful to you, or just if it's interesting. Um,
So what was
it's
the
simple,
brainstorm? What was the problem
yeah.
your brain was trying to solve?
So I have a very opinionated brain. And the problem I was trying to solve, which I've tried to solve before, is to try to find an adequate scripting language. Um, Also, just an easy way to get started on development. Now, I started writing a mini rant about the whole, what it means for a scripting language to be adequate, um, which I haven't published yet. But I'm aware that the moment you say something like best solution for scripting, you're going to get a bunch of responses like, hey, you should just use bash because bash is everywhere. Or someone will say,
Hmm.
just use Python because, bash is terrible and you have to use Python anyway because it's the best thing for the data science stack. That's a better language than bash. Like all those things are true.
I'm in
Or,
the best.
or,
I'm in the just use Perl category for what it's worth.
you're right. Or just use
I
Perl.
figure I should probably learn Ruby. You know,
I think Ruby came and went. Well, I'm sure that's not true. Don't send me an email.
yeah,
I,
careful.
Yeah, it's great. It's great
You don't
for
know
it's
who's
great.
going to be watching this.
It's great for web things, and I have published a Ruby gem, so I can't call it a Ruby hater. Um, or if you keep going down this line, you'll get reactions like, "What's wrong with you? You're crazy. You're overthinking it. All things are relative. There is no best language. Just be practical. Turn off your brain." That's not. I understand that objection. I just totally reject it. It's not the way I operate. Um, so here are the criteria that I started putting together in my mind for what I think would be a kind of adequate, scripting language or a property you'd really want to have in any language you want. Uh, First of all, a script means a single file. There's like a lot of tasks where you want to be able to write a single file program quickly
Right,
in order to get things done. Um,
right.
uh, this is what we like about Bash. Also, an adequate scripting language should be one where it's good for the sort of things you do with scripting. So what do we mean when we talk about scripting? Often we mean file manipulation, some text manipulation, and some process manipulation, like launch this process, launch that process, move these files around. Like this is what Bash is really good for.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but a bit of network stuff, probably
Yeah,
like grabbing something from
curling stuff
HTTP.
or pulling stuff down and then doing things with it. So that's sort of the domain of scripting, and where some languages, might be really good in a general way, like I'm fond of Swift. They often fall down on scripting because some of their APIs are very verbose for these routine
And
operations.
ideally, deployment would be attach
Mm.
it to an email and send it to somebody.
Yes, yes. So this is another part of an adequate scripting language. I can even, yeah, why not? I can share about the sort of draft that I started writing on this, um, which you can see I'm now sort of speaking from vaguely when I talk about like what we mean by an adequate scripting language. So easily deployable is one of these things. So I've had the experience a number of times where I'm roaming around on the internet looking for a piece of software I might use for something that'd be useful. And then I find some GitHub repo and it looks like beautiful. This does it. It's great. And then it's like, just, launch your NPM and do your node and do your package.json. It's like, that's not my religion. I don't know that stack very well. I don't want to learn it very well. I've gotten other
Just
things
to
I'm
mention,
keeping
your
track of.
window might be quite small or something because it looks pretty pixelated over here.
Should I make
No,
it?
it's like your font size is fine. But yeah, I think your window itself maybe was quite
Is that better?
small because it expands it to fill our window.
Okay.
Um,
It's probably not the
so you've
right
probably got a
geometry.
large window with a normal sized font. And that way we'll get, high
It'll be
resolution.
legible.
Cool.
How's that?
Good.
Good. Okay. So easily deployable. This is another big one. And ideally for this easily deployable property, you want to have one file and then you give another person the one file and then they can just run the damn thing. You don't need to give them
Yeah.
an instruction manual on how to understand Python virtual environments or exactly what a node project is or why you should be using RBMs instead of RubyMs instead of,
Yeah.
gem explode or whatever. And uh, obvious things too, you want it to be cross-platform, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have to like learn the subtleties of exactly how like this command is different on Linux versus different on Mac before you can like hand it around to your friends and family.
Yeah.
And you want it to be not a crappy language, so like decent syntax is
And I
part of
will
that.
say Perl is definitely ticking all the boxes so far.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, maybe I should.
Yep. Perl is on everybody's computer already. A single file, yes. It's easily deployable, yes. Um, um, and the syntax is like just basically the same as Bash. If you want to run a process, you stick it in backticks. The result of that process ends up in the variable that you apply that you passed it to. It has,
Okay.
it's regular expression language support directly without using a library.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe
And
Perl
it's got a
already
great
ticks these
standard
boxes.
library. So yeah,
Mhm.
your scripts will be cross-platform.
And last, you
But
want a
I would
good
add another
REPL.
one, which is like
Hmm.
you don't have to learn any language. Maybe that would be another thing to
Yeah.
list here. And since no one knows Perl anymore, it would fail on that aspect.
Yeah. No, that's also a reasonable one. Although perhaps it's a temperamental weakness of mine that I wouldn't think of adding that. um, uh, so another one I would say is that you want to have a good prompt, a good interactive prompt. And that's one that a lot of nice languages can sometimes underperform on. And it's also one of the strengths of Bash. Like the shell is already your interactive prompt, so much so that you don't.
Yes, it is.
Why
The
some
audio is
obvious
good up
solutions?
there. Sorry.
All right, audio good
Back.
again?
Mhm.
Yep.
So I'll just briefly say like why some obvious solutions don't work.
Oh, we've lost you again. It's like,
And
I think there's like a wire that's loose or something because like we just don't hear you at all.
all right, I'm on the wireless, so that seems
Yeah, I was
unlikely.
just wondering if like the boom mic has got a loose wire in it or something. I don't know. It's like it's just
How
It
about
you're
that?
seems
talking, everything's fine, and then suddenly it's like
hmm.
gone.
Maybe
Most of the time it's
I'll
fine. We can tell you
kill a
when it's
bunch of
not.
stuff in the background, and maybe that'll help. All right, here I am. So just to kind of recap why some things don't solve this problem as well as we wish they would. And did I just close Emacs when I was having my frenzy of
and stop
You
sharing your
stop
screen.
sharing your screen, so
okay.
we do not.
All right, I'll bring it up again later. But just to say like why some things don't meet this as well as they might. Oh, and the last thing is external dependencies. So it's all very well and good if you have this nice single file script, but if having a single file script means you're confined to using the built-in standard library, well, you've kind of already lost now, because now you've exploded the other properties. Like, let's say I want to do something in Python, for instance, fairly modest, like I want to handle YAML, right? As far as I know, I could be out of date with this, YAML isn't in the standard library. So now I'm talking about either I'm building my own YAML parser or emitter and putting it in my file. Now I've lost convenience, or I'm using an external library, and now I need to explain to someone else how to make sure they can, install an external library. So like that's no good. So, why some languages like don't, meet these properties like right away. The lack of easy integration of the external library, that one you lose right away for a lot of them. So that's a shame. Languages that you might think would be, even if it's not a very good language, is sort of everywhere. Bash, you don't have the cross-platformness really, because the Bash standard library is actually all the external commands that are on your Unix system, and
Yeah,
those
exactly.
annoyingly are different, in subtle ways from macOS to Linux. So if you're writing a non-trivial script, you start becoming a specialist in the fact that the date command is going to be a little bit different, and the grep command is going to take different arguments. That's just nonsense. Python and Node have this problem that the package management system is a thing where you kind of need to create a whole directory around your script. So you've already lost the nice single file property, and you need whoever you're giving it to like know how to manage local environments, or to be such a guru that they have one vast omni environment that they maintain in a state of like cutting edge excellence and consistency and self-compatibility, which not everyone knows how to do. Some languages that almost do this really well, I'd say, are Go and Rust. Why? Because they actually can produce a single static linked executable. So whatever complexity you went through when you were writing the thing, you can often just give someone a damn artifact and they can run it. They don't need to get like a PhD in your build system in order to use the thing, which is a beautiful, beautiful property. That's why you have all these great command line tools now that come out of the Go and Rust community, because they make something and then everyone can use it, and we don't need to care how it was made. Whereas that can't be said for a lot of other tools, unfortunately. So that's the kind of way I was thinking about the problem. And then I'll show you solutions that I've run into, two or three that struck me as interesting, and then my version of it in Python. And you guys can let me know maybe how it could be improved. So the original idea, let me share my screen. All right, can you see the browser? So,
Yes.
okay, so I was originally inspired by this library from years ago by a brilliant guy named Max Howell, who's responsible for the Homebrew
Oh, yes.
package management system, among other things. And he did a lot of work in the Swift language, and he came up with this thing called Swift Shell. And the way it works is,
Oh, I remember that.
yeah, it's a brilliantly tasteful little piece of engineering. Swift is nice. You can write a single file, script in Swift, but then Swift is crappy because you have a bunch of dependencies. You need to have a package file. You need to have a directory. You need to name them. It's a whole separate operation. But with his thing, instead of having your shebang line in your normal Swift script be this, you just change it to Swift sh. And then you write Swift as usual, except you add special comments that come after the normal Swift import statements. So this comment says that the promise kit library can actually be got from the GitHub account associated with Max Howell, and this script needs a version 6.5 or greater. And you can get more involved with it if you want. You can, have fairly elaborate statements of version dependencies. So in this way, you can write a single file script that actually can have, half a dozen external dependencies with pinned versions if you want. And when you run the script, it will just work. It'll do all the compiling somewhere else. You don't see it. And you just have the magic of I give someone a single file. And as long as they have this Swift shell malarkey installed, then they can just run that file. And the first time they run it takes a while because it's fetching all this stuff and it's compiling. But then the second time it just runs because you have a actually efficient compiled executable. So that's quite nice.
It
I
is.
quite like that. And then the Rust folks never miss a beat these days. There's a similar thing in Rust called Rust script, and it's exactly the same idea. You need to install Rust script. That's actually not so great to install. You got to go and install it with an installer. It's not just a binary you put in a magic place.
Mm.
But then once you do, it's the same gimmick. Or the same active genius. You just replace your shebang with Rust script, and then you have this comment block that comes right after Rust script that states your Rust dependencies. Okay, I need time version 0.1.2.5. And then once you've done that, you've magically created a single file using Rust that can exploit the whole Rust dependency ecosystem and is dead easy to run. You just run it and it goes. That's great for development if you just are getting something with something started with something small, and it's great for distribution. You just give someone the file and they don't need to learn about Rust, they just do it.
I wrote a C# version of this about 20 years ago, which was great. That's in my insurance pricing company, and we just give it to clients, and
yeah,
they would use it to write insurance pricing scripts. I think there might be a somewhat more official way to do it in C# now.
one would think there might be. So basically, I thought this should exist in Python because I
Why
don't know if
not?
everyone I don't know if everyone here agrees, but I'd say the Python has let me change the screen I'm sharing. How do I do that? All right, where's my stop sharing button? Okay. Because in my opinion, one of the, and okay, we're back in Emacs. And let me make the screen bigger. Is this a reasonable size again, Jeremy?
Yep.
In terms of legibility? Yeah.
Thanks.
Because the Python kind of packaging and distribution story, in my opinion, is terrible. Maybe it's great if you like really know your way around it, but it takes a while to realize all the different things that are out there and which ones are kind of redundant and which ones are kind of official and which ones are good and which ones are bad. And every time I like step away from the language for years and come back, I feel like I need to like recheck to see if things are what the situation is. And my understanding of the current situation is that there's two things that work, and they are all you need. If you don't need anything complicated, if you don't need anything that has complicated native dependencies, then you can do everything with venv, and you probably should because venv and pip come built in, and that will get you everywhere you need to go in terms of creating a contained environment and installing everything in a contained environment and working from it. And that's not enough, because if you are doing interesting machine learning stuff for example, or things that have parts of the data science stack, the fact is not all of that can be packaged with venv, and people who think so usually think so because they just haven't had to use those dependencies, so they haven't run into those cases yet. But when you hit those cases, then the answer is conda. You don't need to like it, but that seems to be the truth. So my
It's
current
not bad. It's
understanding,
not bad advice. I would, for what it's worth, I would say actually you should use mini conda regardless. On Windows, if you run Python on a new Windows box, it's a wrapper which basically points you to something that lets you install it. Like it's not already there at all. On Mac, if you run Python, you're running the system Python, which Apple strongly asks everybody not to use for anything other than letting them run system stuff. And on Linux, it's pretty likely you've got a really old Python, you know, if you're using Ubuntu. So I would tell people just use mini conda. That way you've got your own Python, and you can still use venv if you want to. But you know, now it's just like one solution for everybody. Just use mini conda and just use environments.
I've only ever used miniconda. I haven't used the whole sausage before. I think your knowledge of this is much better than mine. So everyone, you should listen to Jeremy's advice. Um, but if you have an allergy to conda and you know you don't need the data science stack, then it's my understanding that you can get by with just pip and
You
venv.
probably can get by. The other thing I'd say is if you think you have an allergy to conda, you probably have an allergy to Anaconda as it existed 2 or more years ago, at which point it was slow and awful, and it's actually now fast and nice. So your allergy may have recovered.
Yeah, and also if I understand right, miniconda now uses Mamba as its dependency resolver, so it's a lot faster than it
Kind
used to
of.
be.
It uses Mamba's algorithm,
Mhm.
but you don't ever have to think or know about that. So it's actually, yeah, it's using libmamba behind the scenes, which uses a proper fast C++ optimized solver. So it is fast.
Okay, yeah, so maybe some people haven't touched it for a while, have a memory of it being much slower than it actually is these
Yeah,
days.
it used to be very, very annoying, but nowadays it just works and it's quick.
So speaking of just works, why don't I show you what I have sort of working right now, and I can get your
Lovely.
opinion on what would be a maybe tasteful way to improve it. So based on my picture of like what one actually needs these days, being sometimes conda and sometimes just pip and venv, I ultimately, let's see what the latest version of this thing is.
So just one other thing to mention, if you do use Conda, you can still use venv. So like, you know,
Yes.
if you want to like, if for some reason Conda environments are not for you, that's totally fine. You can just use venv in all situations except the one that Alexis mentioned, which is you want more complicated binary things to install, like a compiler framework or, you know, compiler toolkit or CUDA or whatever.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that because I've tried to cover both cases in the way this thing works now based on my understanding of like what's sometimes necessary and what's always necessary. So the point you're making, Jeremy, is that if you create a conda environment, once you're within the conda environment, then you can then run conda install, and you'll be installing packages that are conda packages managed through conda's distribution repos. But once you're in the conda environment, you can also just run pip install and install.
And you don't
Pip.
even need to be in a Conda environment. Like once you've installed Conda, you're always in an environment called the base environment. So you can actually never think about it. You can forget about the fact you're using Conda or mini Conda entirely. You can use nothing but pip. You can use nothing but venv.
Yeah.
And your life will be just fine. You'll
Yeah.
just be using a recent Python version that's installed into your home directory and therefore is up to date and doesn't upset your Mac and doesn't require sudo and so forth.
You should definitely be using one of those. You don't want to use the system Python because it's actually there for the system to use. It's not there with the intention that you would build on top of it and install new dependencies into it. Because at any given point, Apple might decide to upgrade it, change things around, and you don't want to be destabilizing your system. All right, so here's how this will work. I've got a couple test scripts here that I was using to test it out. So I'll show some of the cases. So very simple example would be one where you have a script and it has no dependencies at all. Right, here's a very boring script. And here you can see the shebang is something I'm now calling VM script, but I'll change that. I can change that now to.
I'm just going to tell people what /user/bin/env is because a lot of people might
Yes,
be
good
confused
point.
about that. So you don't have to use that. It's just a thing which I don't know. It's kind of I guess, you know, it's trying to find the correct place to find that from, but you could avoid that and just directly write the full path of your combo script too, if you wish.
Yeah. All right. So the script I wrote, the latest version of it, is now, this is the part that needs cleaning up. This one right here. And what it will do is when it reads a script, it will parse a script looking for a dependency block.
Mhm.
A dependency block is a formatted set of comments which may specify conda commands to run in a new conda environment. And may specify the exact text of a requirements.txt file, which will be pip installed either in the conda environment or else in a VM. So for example, I've got my test scripts here. I feel like I've let everyone into my house before I cleaned up. It's very embarrassing. If you look at this script, for instance, this is the dependency block.
Mhm.
The conda part of the blocks always starts with a header, which is conda commands.source, because if you were actually in a conda environment, you would source those commands in order to do your installations. And then the things that you might only want to pip install are in here, introduced with a header requirements.txt. And this text here in the lines under requirements.txt will literally be the text of a requirements.txt file that's used. And then Python 3 pip install -r requirements.txt will be run to install that. So with this script, for instance, if we run it, and let me put my thing in the path here. All right, so the one I was looking at, it was test script conda requirements. Make sure my latest version is in the path. Yes, it is. Move this junk out of the way. So I'm invoking it now by calling the script, but because it's in the shebang, you wouldn't need to do that in order to run it.
Well, let's do it the cool way then.
All right, let's do it the cool way. So let me make sure I've updated this to be compo script 2. So just to recap what Jeremy was saying, if people haven't used this before, this line in the beginning is what tells the operating system what interpreter to use to run the file. So this file's been marked executable. Let me make sure if I have it here, conda and requirements. Yeah, there's the X there for the executable bit. So if I just run the script, combo script 2, sorry, I run test script conda and requirements, then the operating system will read this line. It'll say, okay, I got to go find this thing in the environment. Because I put it in the path, it will be in the environment. It will then run my combo script 2 and pass in this file, test script conda requirements as the first argument to run it. And when I do that, I've got it doing, well, there it ran very quickly because I'd already cached the building that it did. But I have it doing a lot of debug logging here where it says, it parsed it, it found that the dependency block implies the script will need conda. It then went into a cache directory that's kept out of the way where it found the conda environment defined by that directory.
Okay.
Uh,
So even though that's called VM script cache, I shouldn't be confused. That is actually a
yeah,
conda
no,
environment.
that's just the naming that I
Cool.
need to update on where to put it. But we can go look at those cache things, erase them, and then see it do the thing of figuring out what to do the first time. That's much noisier. So I'm calling it VM script cache, but I'll erase the cached environments now. And those caches, those alphanumeric blobs were MD5 hashes that were based on the dependency block. So
Okay.
So
run it again.
there's no fanciness. Like I know some systems will, oh, if you only changed one of the pip requirements, there's no reason to like create a whole new conda environment and download PyTorch again and all of that. It'll just update the one
Well,
package.
that won't happen anyway because conda is very smart. So first of all, conda stores all downloaded packages in a packages directory, so it won't have to re-download anything. And the packages directory is stored, I think, in the base environments location, so it shouldn't be re-downloading any of those things. And then secondly, although it looks like it's using up a lot of space to have a whole second copy of Python and stuff, it's actually using hard links
Mm,
if you've got that installed elsewhere in another environment or in your base environment. So
okay,
it's pretty smart.
cool.
Yeah. So this is so now it just actually ran and did the thing, and I haven't silenced the output by capturing standard out or dumping it. So that's why it's so noisy. But as you can see here, it ran through and installed the bits that were needed for conda, created a conda environment associated with this directory only, did the conda installs, and then it also did the pip install into that. And because conda also lets you specify the version of Python, this effectively ends up being a way that you can, in your Python script, specify and ensure that it's run by a specific version of Python, rather than have that be information that you communicate out of channel and that someone else needs to keep track of. If you want to go see what it's done in that developer directory, you can see there it's now created a new entry in that cache. And at the moment, I just write literally down here the conda commands that were detected. Oh, interesting. I also wrote the requirements thing in there, but this is just put here for information. It's not actually run. And then here's the stuff that
I can
conda
see
actually
it's
put
got
in
a little
place.
error there. I can see in line 137 underneath it's complaining about requirements.text command not found and dash dash prefix command not found on line 139.
Oh, right. Good point. So my parser is picking up the requirements.text incorrectly. So I should fix that.
That's okay. We get the idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be fixed by the time somebody else watches this video.
Yes. And if we weren't using conda, if we only had, let's look at another example. Well, if you have a script with no dependencies, it's just going to run like a normal Python script. Let me see if I can find that. Grant requirements. Yeah, so this is head test script no deps. Yeah, chmod.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
chmod plus before. Like if you don't say
Plus X.
u plus x, does it default to u and x, or it defaults to u r x w, or?
You got me. That was a typo, so I don't know what it
Oh,
just did.
okay. I'm surprised
Hopefully,
it didn't
yeah.
spit
Hopefully
out
it
an
didn't.
error. It must have done something. Maybe
Or
it added
here,
nothing at all to no groups at all or users.
yeah. Or here's an example where it only has a requirements.txt file.
Okay.
So let's see that one go.
Cool kids use fast progress rather than TQDM, by the way. That's what I hear.
So here it's detected that you can see from the logging, which is noisy right now, it detects that the dependency block implies script will only need VMs and pip, So you don't need to have conda on your system to use it. That's the other reason I wanted to make it so it didn't require conda, right? The whole
Mm-hmm.
point of this is to create a thing where people need to install the minimum amount in order to be able to use scripts.
Mm.
So it needs to create the VM, and then it does that, and then within it, it installs this library. And if we go look at the cache directory, which again needs renaming, we'll see there's a new entry. There. This one hopefully just has the requirements.txt file properly formatted and the VM inside there. So that's the gist of it. It's a little noisy right now and it doesn't do all the error
That's
checking
good.
right.
I like it. And like with people don't quite realize on the whole, I think that conda has like every program you can imagine, you know,
Yeah, it's not only Python.
GCC, GraphViz,
R,
Fmpeg.
Node, whatever. So if you wanted to have a script that creates database diagrams, you know, and send
yes,
it to somebody using the thing I
yes,
showed yesterday, you could have this and it would have a, you know, conda install
yes.
GraphViz there.
It's very general. And there's a couple, well, like a little bit of context on this. Like part of the reason I'm so militant, I guess, about like easy deployment in single files is that I've in the past operated in environments where not everyone around me was a software engineer. Where I was CTOing at my startup, we have a factory, like a literal physical factory that was like right there as part of the office. And there would be technicians working with manufacturing equipment, and we created software just for
You
them
should
to
say what you
use.
guys were making,
Oh yeah, we were
Alexis, because
making
it's interesting.
right, making custom eyeglasses, and so we had we used machine learning to scan the
Like per
face
person customized, right?
per person. So we scan your face with the front-facing iPhone camera, eventually the depth sensor, do inference to work out the 3D shape of the face, and then those measurements of the shape of the face would get fed into computer-controlled milling machines, CNC machines, to make glasses that exactly fit your face. And so as part of the business operations, it wasn't just people doing ML, people doing iOS development. There were people there operating CNC machines and making glasses, and they would we need to have a workflow so that they would get data that came out of our database properly and was fed then correctly into the CNC machines. You've got to do order tracking, customer tracking, taking payments, like all that stuff. So you need a lot of bits and pieces of custom software that everyone can use: the customer service reps, the factory technicians, the software engineers, the marketing professionals.
Yeah.
Like all these people are super capable, but they're not all people who want to know what the hell it even means to talk about, like, why are you bringing a snake onto my computer? You know, Python this. It's ridiculous. Oh, what? I need to install Swift first? What's Swift? Is that a bird? Like, you know, it's no good. Like, you just want to be able to give them a goddamn file and then have them run it. And anytime you need to do anything else, like, oh, just, you know, update your node, like, you've failed. Like the whole stack has failed. If you're requiring that, you've already lost. So before I, you know, want to make anything, I want to think about, is it going to be a thing that someone else can use easily, not like that they can use if they care about it. And I couldn't do that with Python, and I could sort of barely do that with Swift using the Swift shell, you know, getup. But what I like about this is, you know, when I was talking to you about this earlier, John, you were saying, well, this is good, but can you just make it a Python module? Like that might be good for Python users, but then it's chicken and egg, because now they need to know how to install a Python module, right? Or they got to pip install the thing that saves them from doing pip installs. Like right now, my goal is for this thing just to be a single file that anyone can put in their path if you can explain to them where a path is. And then if they do that, and then you can also explain the shebang. So we're already deeper in than we want. Then
So
it would
Alexis,
just work.
I have things that might be helpful to you.
Yes, I'm interested. I have a bunch of questions, but I'd be interested in feedback, thoughts.
I have a installer for Miniconda that you can just run, and it works. It'll install, and without any interactive anything, install Miniconda on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And I believe somewhere I also have that sitting on a URL, so you can just curl blah pipe bash, and you don't even have to download it. So yeah, if you want to be like, okay, to run this script, you'll need Miniconda. If you're not sure if you've got that, or you know that you don't, copy and paste this one line, and you're done.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Because I think I haven't, obviously it's a bit of a mess right now because I just got it working. But my goal is to make it extremely easy to adopt so that like data scientists and people who are smart and have a need to maybe do a little bit of scripting can use really all of Python without
Yeah.
needing to learn the package.
Exactly. Also, remember that you can pip install from a Git repo directly. Things don't have to be on PyPy. So two things. A, make sure your regular expression handles plus, because that's what you'll be Git plus, blah, blah, blah. And the second would be, you might want to like mention it if you've got some kind of tutorial or README or something, is like, here's the absolute easiest way to create a package for somebody else to use. And nowadays with pyproject.toml, that's, yeah, pretty easy. So if you've got a repo with a pyproject.toml in it, you've now got something that people can pip install, which means you've now got something that people, so for people who are slightly more advanced,
Right.
they can create things to enhance other people's Python scripts.
So this was a part where I was interested in getting feedback from both of you, because I feel like there's a lot of there's some design choices to be made here that are shallow in engineering terms, but very consequential in user experience terms. And those are the design choices around what format to require / accept in this comment block. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
interesting you mentioned,
that's too complicated. Like requirements.txt is fine. Pyproject.toml would be if you know, wanted to create a package for somebody else to install.
yeah, so
Requirements.txt is
I was
fine.
experimenting with this, but then I rejected it because when I started looking at what constitutes the simplest, the kind of minimum parsable pyproject.toml, it was already longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
it's not like, it doesn't buy you anything, you know.
exactly. Yeah, it
The
doesn't
other thing I'd
actually.
say is for your examples, like, um, I don't know. I discourage people from putting specific version numbers in their requirements.txt. I'd say this for here as well. You know, I'd probably just say greater than or equal to 4, less than 5, or
Yeah,
something.
no, I
You
think
know,
that's true.
there's a tendency. I mean, obviously, this comes very much from the NPM world, where everybody has these lock files and stuff. So people in the Python world tend to use this equals equals thing, but I think it's not. I mean, it doesn't matter so much what you're doing because everything's going to be in a separate env anyway.
Yeah.
But I kind of discourage people from thinking this is how we should package software, that it depends on the specific sub version of a package, you know.
But why?
Mm.
Why do you say that? Let me disagree a little bit, or at least figure
Yeah,
out
no,
where you're
it's fine.
coming
Like I
from.
say, in your particular case, it actually doesn't matter too much because you're going to have it. Well, the only reason why is that if I've got a different script that uses 4.66.5, it's going to have to download a separate one and store the separate one in my packages, and I can't hard link anymore. And so all those things I'm saying about how efficient and fast and low disk usage this will be would be thrown out.
Mm.
Well, they'd be compromised somewhat because now we'd have two versions
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
Yeah.
system. Yeah.
And you're not winning anything. And it's kind of for people who are, you know, more beginnery, just learning types. It's kind of saying to them like, oh, this is how you're meant to package software. It has, you know, you're meant to assume that it only works in a specific sub version. It's a minor issue, but
I think it depends
I
on the sophistication of the consumer. So if I like think back to my prototypical use scenario, if I want to hand someone a script that they can run, even if they have less technical expertise around Python, I really want to do everything I can to make sure that it will run like no matter where it lands. Like if it's raining, if it's snowing, if they're running Python 3.10, if they're running Python 3.7,
no,
I,
absolutely. I
I want
agree.
it just to work. So locking that down, because if I make it open-ended, then I face the risk that at some point there will be a future
Well, that's what I'm
release.
saying. You don't make it
Yeah,
open-ended. You make it
yeah.
slightly more open-ended,
Mm.
right? So for mine, I generally write greater than or equal to X, where X is the minimum version I know works, and then less than, and then I write the next major version number.
Okay.
Or,
So
you
you
know,
let
you
the
could make it
patch version
slightly less
vary.
annoying. Like you could just write 4.66 dot star, you know,
Yeah.
or 4.66, I think might work.
So
Or
pin major and minor version. I could see that.
anyway, it's a minor issue.
Mm.
I also noticed in your actual script, I
Mhm.
think your regular expressions could be less strict. So I would use hash \s star in the conda header and pip header rather than hash space. I would also put a \s star after the colon.
Sorry, which line
So
are you
that,
talking about?
so yeah, those two lines, 23 and 24. After the
Right.
hash, I would change the space to \s star.
Oh, so it could be an
Um,
arbitrary number of white space
yep.
tokens.
And I would also put arbitrary amount of white space before the new line. And
Yeah,
rather
no,
than using a
that's
new
all.
line, I would put an R before that string so that you then don't need new line. Instead, I'd say $. And then, well, it depends how you're doing this exactly, but I don't know. That \s, I think in some versions of Python that might now complain that you haven't, this is not an R string. Where
These
you
aren't
should
our
have,
strings.
that should be \s star, not \s
Oh, sorry.
plus. You don't want to require
I
spaces before your
I
new
do
line.
though, because I want everything to be hash and then a space, at least one space at the beginning.
Yeah, but not at the end.
That's
Currently, you're
true.
requiring a space at the
Yeah.
end.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Mm.
And then pip header probably wants a plus as well.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is why I picked up the pip block at all when earlier. So there's
Yeah.
probably a deeper problem here I haven't sorted out.
People don't have to watch us.
Yeah.
People
Anyway.
watch us
Okay.
debug together, but yeah.
But
There's
speaking
more
of
of a
other
general comment is in general for these kinds of things, I try to make my matching things reasonably flexible.
so this goes to the other thing I was wondering about. So I think it's almost certainly the right decision to use a syntax where, first of all, instead of putting things off of the comments line here, off of next to the thing, actually
Mhm.
just have a block at the top,
Yeah,
because that
I
means that
think
the
so.
requirement, yeah, because that means in
But I would
particular that,
put them in, this is quite a common pattern nowadays, is to put things in a YAML fenced block. So that would be, except commented, so that would be a hash space dash 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 at the top and a hash space dash 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 at the bottom. And that way it's like very clear exactly where your block starts and stops. And if there's anything in there which you don't recognize in the block, you can tell people, rather than it just mysteriously not running that thing. It's a YAML metadata block. It's just dash 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 followed by some lines. And at the end, it's another dash dash dash.
okay. So, but I'm gonna have
In
to
your
put
case,
hashes around it.
you're going
Yeah,
to hash
yeah.
before it. Yeah. And with, as many spaces as you like.
So the thing that was,
Yeah.
so the thing that was, well, I want to follow up on that because I'm not 100% sure I understood, but the one particular thing that I really wanted to get both of your opinion on is what's the right format here? Because
Yeah. That's the next
for
thing I was going
pip,
to mention.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think you should have two separate sections. I think you should have a conda requirements. And conda requirements would all get passed to a single conda install minus YQ, and then the entire lot of requirements space delimited would all get done at once, because most people don't need conda commands. And then
there's
that's not really a conda command source. It's just a,
bash,
commands
right?
source. It's like just commands to run.
So I started looking at conda requirements, but as near as I could tell, there wasn't a well-defined format that was specified by conda that
Mm.
had
There
all
is.
the
It's the thing you've got
properties.
there. It's a thing you've got there, which is the thing that appears after the minus minus quiet. So that's what we use in NBDev as well. So I would list it exactly like your requirements.txt, but I would have,
Right.
conda
So
requirements.
the reason I thought that might not work, and you can correct me on this because you know not a lot more than I do, is that if you happen to be installing something where you wanted to rely on different channels
Mm.
for different
Yep.
packages, then the
Yep.
binding through which this channel applies for these packages and that channel applies for those
Yeah, you can use
packages.
colon for that.
Oh, okay. So there's a way to.
And you know, I would be inclined to have like in the like conda requirements, you know, space channels colon, and that way you've got like, you know, because it's very rare that you need to like almost. I don't think I've ever needed to specify different channels for different things. I just have channels for everything. So I
Mm.
would have like hash conda requirements space conda dash forge space fast chan colon, you know, and then I'd have just my requirements, one per line. And if you did need a specific channel for a specific thing, you can just use like, and if all you're doing is just concatenating with a space, then it'll work because you can, you know, a user can put channel colon
Okay. I think I
thing.
need to see that syntax to understand it. You say it's used in NBDev for the conda installation.
There's no syntax to tell you. It's what you've got. Python equals 3.10. That's the syntax.
Mm.
NumPy. That's the syntax.
But you could
Uh,
say
but with the colon is what
conda
I'm not
dash
is
forward colon
Well,
Python.
yeah, as I say, you'll never ever like I've never used it in my life, so I just like A, you don't have to worry about it. B, you don't have to do anything to support it because it'll just happen. If you just pass it along to conda install, it'll just work.
so I guess I'm thinking about setups like this.
Yep.
So
So you just dump it. It's fine. You just dump them all like in one command. It'll work fine.
mhm. So there's not a complicated binding that needs to be maintained here between CUDA is enabled by this channel, this stuff is enabled by the PyTorch channel, the NVIDIA channel.
No,
These
it's
things are coming out of the default. And if I don't preserve that binding property, then the installation won't work if I do it on one line.
I mean, it's unusual for that to be the case, and if it is, then people can put it in the commands one, you know. But I suggest that for the normal easy stuff that's like 99.999% of the time, just make it
Okay,
easy,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, because I was trying to find easy format to use that was also well specified and natural, and I wasn't sure what there was. It sounds like what you're saying works. What I liked about this was, what I didn't like about this was it wasn't a well specified format. It was just the commands people would issue. But then what I sort of
Yeah,
liked about it is it was just the commands people would issue. So if you imagine there's
yeah.
somebody who doesn't know their way around but has made these commands before, it's not too frightening to see, oh, okay, these commands will be
No,
run.
exactly. It's just, so I just support both, right? But for the one
Yeah,
you've got
yeah,
here, there's no reason it couldn't say conda colon Python equals 310 NumPy.
yeah. So basically something like, uh, this is what you're suggesting.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put the dot text there because it's kind of weird, but yeah.
Okay. And then the hash, well, I'll look up what you mean by the YAML fencing. You mean,
So I would do, yeah, but I would put it around the whole thing, not just for the conda bit. 3 dashes, not 4. No, not there. So I would go right to the to line 2. I would insert a new line in line 2. And I would put hash dash 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 there. And then I would go to line 10 and put a new line after that and put another hash dash
oh,
dash
I
dash
see, to
there.
fence the whole thing, not the separate
Yep.
parts.
And then you just grab it and then if somebody's accidentally typed the wrong thing somewhere, you can say like, I didn't understand that line, you know.
Yeah,
Or if you don't find any requirements of any kind, you can say like, oh, you've got a fence block, but there's nothing I recognize at all, or
yeah.
etc.
Yeah, that might be good. Just trying to think about how to make it easy for someone who's doesn't really know what a shebang is, doesn't quite know what conda is, but they kind of know, I found a thing and now I'm trying to modify it to get a new result out of it, which is a likely situation for
Yeah,
certain
exactly. And I
classes of
think this is clear
practitioners.
enough what you have to edit.
But I'm very excited by it. I know it's a tiny little thing. It's less than 300 lines of code or whatever, but I think it will enable it to be easier to experiment with stuff. Just create a single file, run it, get on with your day.
I don't remember the last time I wrote something with over 300 lines of code in it, so I wouldn't measure things based on how many lines of code it has.
Yeah, I mean, not that's a figure of merit. I'm just saying it's not a you know, it's not a big thing. It's just a little thing.
Mhm.
Oh, the other question is where to dump all the garbage.
Yeah,
All
XDG
the
is the right
cache,
thing to do. Exactly.
if it exists. But if it doesn't, then I don't know. Is it going to .cache on Linux and library developer on Mac OS?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think fast core. Let me check.
I just copied this behavior from Swift Shell because
Nice.
Max usually makes good choices. So
Yeah, so there's a fastcore.xdg library which you could borrow. Yeah, and it attempts to have
do something
sensible
sensible.
defaults for everything. Although it could probably be improved because it, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's wrong, but it's, if you don't have something like it, if you don't have xgd cache home, it uses path.home/.cache, for example.
What file is that defined in?
Fastcore/xdg.py.
Okay, well, definitely something to
So if
work
you
out
feel
here.
like there are better places to put things on Mac, I would rather a PR to this than
Yeah.
something else. That way everybody can benefit.
Yeah, I'll give it a think. Apple often has pretty good docs if you look for them about where things are supposed to go.
Yeah.
How fully
Yeah,
they're
I think
observed
I
just
really only
depends.
looked up the Linux or POSIX or something docs and didn't really think about Mac specific. Nice, Alexis. Thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure. It's nice to get excited about a little thing because it'll be, it'll be done quickly because it's little, and then you can actually then go on and use it and get on with something else.
Yeah. Maybe this is why I only ever do little things. But the nice thing is, like, if you kind of organize your little things in a nice way, eventually you discover that they all created a big thing by mistake. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Nice.
all right, we done? We're good? I
I think
like
we're
it.
good.